Hey everybody, welcome to Sew with Joe. Today we're working on my blanket project where most of the patch pieces are over 20 years old, and we'll be talking about trees. So let's get into it. I already have some white thread on from last episode from the cushion project, so I'm going to start right about in the middle, work my way to the inside. We'll switch back over to our traditional red blanket thread as soon as I've used this up. So today is all about trees, and I would like to talk first about the value of ancient trees. And when I say ancient trees, I mean the 1%er trees, like the one out of every few hundred, every few thousand that lives to be hundreds of years old, maybe even thousands of years old depending on the tree. We need to learn the value of these trees, and then I'll pass that knowledge on to you today here. Now, why are ancient trees important? Why should you leave them be? Well, one big thing is that they provide genetic diversity. So all of the new trees that are growing up, and if they have any mutations or defects or anything like that, then they can be crossbred or backbred with this ancient tree, and the resulting trees will be stronger. So it provides both a genetic diversity and a stability at the same time. Because the genetics of the ancient tree is stable, and it's also different from the newer trees, so it's diverse. Another value of ancient trees is that they contain information about the environment for as long as that tree has been around. So in the rings of the tree can contain a lot of information about how the environment has changed over the years, and these trees can be sampled and we can learn a lot from them. And the one thing that scientists are noting is that younger trees seem less resilient to climate change. So the younger trees aren't living as longer, so these ancient trees are even more valuable as that's happening. So if you live somewhere that has trees and you're thinking of taking some down, whatever you do, Leave the biggest, leave the ancient trees, leave the ones that have been there for longer than we've been around. Leave them be. Let them grow. It's like fishing, it's like hunting, it's like any of these other things that you do. You leave the big ones. You know, fishing has limits on taking the size of fish that you can take, so that you aren't taking out the big spawners. And speaking of saving ancient trees, there's been 523 acres in California which have been donated to the Sinkyone natives for preservation. So these 523 acres, about 200 acres of that is old growth redwood forest. So ancient redwoods. And those trees are being saved as the land has been donated to an Aboriginal group for them to take care of it. And the Indigenous Council has vowed to protect the lands, and now that they've been returned to the original inhabitants to be cared for, then there's less worry about logging operations and stuff like that setting up. Because it's now more protected than it was before, and that's massively good news. And in this forest that they're saving, there are obviously other things aside from ancient redwood trees, such as smaller redwood trees. They have Douglas fir and tan oak. Tanawak? I'm not sure how to say that one. And madrones. So lots of different types of trees that they're saving. There's a lot of different brush that'll be protected, like huckleberries, elderberries, manzanitas, and others. And in this acreage, there is a creek that runs through it. So there's a lot of wildlife around that area because of the water source. And that area is home to a number of endangered species. Those endangered species include coho salmon, steelhead trout, and back on land, the marbled murrelet, the northern and the northern spotted owl. So in addition to saving ancient redwoods, it's also going to be helping to provide habitat for a number of endangered species. All really, really good news. And these lands have been added to 180,000 acres of conserved land in that area, and is right next door to the 7,250 acre Sinkyone Wilderness State Park. So it's already a very conserved area, and now they have added another 523 acres onto that. So every acre counts, every tree counts. This is massively good news for the world environment. Because you want to talk about carbon reduction factories, that's a tree. You know, they take in carbon because they need to grow. They need carbon to grow. And yeah, you can keep from having to build factories to remove CO2 just by not cutting down trees. Especially the ancient trees, the ones that are so valuable for their genetic diversity. And genetic stability, because it's just something like that that can live that long. Its offspring should have a much better chance than some tree that's just started to make acorns and spread the seed. Cheers. I'm just trying to decide my course of action here. I'm just gonna sew up this end quick. I think this is at the end, but I wanted to leave this open a little bit so that if I am joining it to something else, then I can. Okay, sorry about that. I looked around and found a place that needed to be patched up. Apparently I missed a corner here, so I'm going to do that while I finish up my last story. Now, we've been talking about trees, and in our last little segment there we mentioned coho salmon being conserved by saving the land in California. And today we go over to Scotland and them having problem with their salmon. And the salmon solution is trees. Let me explain. They did a study on salmon spawning grounds in Scotland. And the Scotland Salmon Spawning Survey found that 70% of spawning waters had temperatures which were too high for eggs to properly incubate. Salmon like cold temperatures, their eggs like cold temperatures, and the rivers are not cold enough. And what they're doing to reduce the water temperatures is they are planting trees along the river banks. So these trees, as they grow, will provide shade for the water, for the salmon, and for the salmon eggs. And yeah, how else would you go about cooling down massive amounts of water? I don't know, I think shade is probably your best bet. And if you can do it naturally with trees, which will also remove carbon dioxide from the air and fight greenhouse gases and all those issues, I think that's a good solution for Scotland. Their plan is to plant upwards of 1 million trees. They're starting off with 250,000, and the goal is for around 1 million, all the way along their riverways. One interesting thing I thought with this story was that they're actually fencing the trees in because the deer just eat them, and we've experienced that here where we live. We have a number of neighbors who have planted trees, and we see the deer going up to them and just eating them. So that's something we're planning on, planting trees this spring, and that's one thing we'll need to take into consideration. Some protection so that the deer don't immediately eat the trees. And apparently these techniques have worked elsewhere. Scotland didn't just think of this themselves. And so it's been proven, and they are going to implement tree planting to save their salmon. And salmon saving serves society. Not sure what's going on with the alliteration with me lately. I've just been on a kick. The alliterative kick. I don't even know if alliterative is a word. Anyways. So yeah, patched that hole up. Had one corner that wasn't quite holding up. And there it is. And we got this seam done. And next episode we will connect it into that side. Well, thanks very much for joining me. Cheers. I do very much appreciate the time we get to spend together. Till next time, keep chillin'. Don't forget your cookie. Peace.